Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please tell all of your family and friends about the podcast, and if you can, please subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Ghana, Himalaya, Podcast Addict, Good Pods, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is McCallum Staats. She's here to celebrate high flyers, 15 inspiring women aviators and astronauts. Before we invite Ann into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Rex's Journey, helping children understand and cope with emotions, written by Dr. Ambrose Poss Turner. Rex has been struggling with understanding why and how he feels. From anger one minute to sad the next, he just wants to be a kid. What's so hard about that? But we can't always control how we feel, especially not as kids. Follow along with Rex's journey as he learns how to cope with his emotions in a safe and healthy way, something we can all learn from. Get your copy today, Rex's Journey, Helping Children Understand and Cope with Emotions by Dr. Ambrose Poss Turner. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Michelle Wagner, author of the award-winning Mickey on the Move series. These bright-hearted picture books are based on the real-life story of Michelle's son, Mickey, who has severe hearing loss. These books take readers through Mickey's journey navigating life with cochlear implants as he defies boundaries and thrives while living with a disability. Follow Mickey's latest adventure in Mickey on the Move Farming and find out how technology helps Mickey to hear and appreciate the beautiful sounds in nature without the worry of weather dampening his day. Get your copy today at michellewagnerauthor.com. It's Mickey on the Move. Join us right now from Northern Virginia. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new nonfiction book. It's called High Flyers, 15 Inspiring Women Aviators and Astronauts. Please welcome to the show, Ann McCallum Staats. Hey, Ann, how are you?
I am great, very excited. In fact, the book birthday is tomorrow, so super excited about that.
I'm really excited to have you on. 15 Inspiring Women Aviators and Astronauts. This is a great topic. And I think it's really important for us to be celebrating women in the STEM fields and in these type of roles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm thrilled. It was just such an honor to write, and for the most part, these are all based on interviews. And so I got to reach out to some just amazing women, and who didn't have time. I mean, they were very high-powered, busy people. But they gave me time anyway. So I really, first of all, I want to give a shout out to them, for being so accommodating and being willing to share their incredible stories.
Yeah. Where did the inspiration for this book come from?
Well, so I actually had written another book. It's called Thrill Seekers, 15 Remarkable Women in Extreme Sports. So that's kind of where it started for me. And, so extreme sports, high flyers, aviators, astronauts. I got interested in space. I was reading some articles about, space, and I thought about this whole idea of women who were, kind of in these non-traditional roles. And then I think the clincher was one time I was on an airplane, and I, happened to see that the captain was actually a woman. And I said to her at the time, I said, I might be writing a book about this. And, that kind of stuck, that little seed stuck in the back of my head, and sort of germinated for a while. And then I came up with this idea, to write about these women aviators and astronauts. And it was this journey of incredible amazement and respect for these people doing, just unusual and challenging things.
Interviewing women who are involved in extreme sports, astronauts, aviators, it sounds like somebody who do you have this kind of hidden desire to be an extreme athlete yourself, or to be somebody has their feet off the ground most of the time?
Well, that's so funny because when I was writing about, first of all, the extreme athletes, I thought, what is this mindset? They're it's kind of scary. And so I decided to do some hands-on research. So I went, I did three things. I went, into a Formula One race car. And it wasn't like an actual Formula One race car because it had two seats. It was kind of, made for tourists or whatever. And that was amazing. I mean, just the smell and the, adrenaline of punching it and going so fast. I went scuba diving. I took like a little mini lesson, and I saw a stingray on the bottom of the ocean, which was, just this incredible experience. And I have to say, like, the scariest part of that to me was when I was in the swimming pool in sort of step one, and they said, okay, you're going to just breathe through the equipment, and you're looking up and you're seeing a couple of feet of water ahead of you, and you're breathing in. And it was just like, this is just so unnatural. So I did that. And I also went tandem skydriving, which was, just the most exciting thing ever. And, I was strapped super tightly to this guy, and we were actually the last ones out of the airplane. And so he took a little extra time with me. And so we were sort of perched on this open door of the airplane. And he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah. And, all of a sudden we just drop and we're just fleeing through the air. And then he, pulls the ripcord, and it's just the most peaceful, beautiful experience ever. And I remember one of the women that I had interviewed, she's a wingsuit flyer and an international model. And she said that, she prefers being in the air. Like, to her, being in the air is the most peaceful, safe, freeing place that she knows of on Earth. And so, just with kind of these ideas and just that tiny little spark of experience, it was just a joy to write about, these high flyers and these amazing women doing incredible things. Yeah,
that's, there was a time in my life when I was much younger that I thought about skydiving. And I don't know, life happened, and then very quickly that the desire to jump out of a perfectly fine airplane just disappeared from my mind.
Exactly. I don't know. It's like nothing else. It's just like nothing else.
I guess.
So yeah, amazing.
So getting back to the brand new book, High Flyers, who are some of the women that we're going to meet in this book?
Oh my gosh, what a lineup! So I don't even know where to start, but so basically I've organized the book by elevation, and so I start with helicopter pilots, bush pilots, even a hot air balloonist, first hot air balloon pilot in the United Arab Emirates, and she had to go through a lot to get to that point. In that chapter, I talk about Brooke Roman, who fell in love with small planes in Alaska. She was actually offered a job flying drones and for this huge salary. And she chose not to. She chose to learn about how to fly a pontoon plane, how to land on these tiny little remote lakes, in the middle of Alaska, in the middle of nothing. And so she was really cool. I wrote about Senator Duckworth, who came from a very challenging childhood. And, the thing that struck me about her is that, she says that she has a superpower, and her superpower is hard work. And I love that because, she just had all these huge hills, all these huge obstacles to get over. When she first became a pilot, I mean, even that was tough to get that coveted spot as a Black Hawk pilot. But she did it because she had gone through ROTC. She was an officer, but at the time women were not allowed to be in combat. And she was like, this is just, I didn't sign up for not being in combat, for not, just kind of sitting on the sidelines. And so, one of the things she could do was she could fly a Black Hawk because they were basically support vehicles. So she learned how to do that. She got her, Black Hawk certification. And, as unluck would have it, her aircraft was hit by an RPG. Well, that was, as we, probably all know, catastrophic. She lost both her legs, almost an arm. But it didn't stop her. And, she went from being, she went from serving in that capacity to serving in the United States Senate. I mean, one of the highest positions that we have in this country. So there's her, there's Dee Dee Murawski, who became a medevac pilot. And again, serving and, sleeps with her boots on because you never know when you're going to get the call. Never put off being hungry because, what if you get the call and you can't eat? Anyway, and then to the next level, I talk about commercial pilots. I talk about, military pilots and jet pilots and, in those what are they? F-18s that are just, incredible aircraft. One of the stories that I enjoyed, well, I loved them all, but Tammy Jo Schultz wanted to be a pilot ever since her family lived near this airfield, and she kept seeing all of these pilots practicing in the air. And so she was actually told no. I think at least 3 times. Her counselor told her no. She went to a career day. They told her no, actually way more than 3 times because she went to recruiters and they told her no. Finally, somebody did allow her to take the test. She passed. She was able eventually to become an aviator, but, after much perseverance and much determination and grit. And thank goodness, because she was actually, I don't know if you recall, but 2018, there was that Southwest flight 1380 that went almost down. It was catastrophic engine failure. So one whole side of the airplane was incapacitated, and Tammy Jo Schultz was flying it, and she said that when it happened, it exploded. And she thought that they had been hit. Like she literally thought that they had been hit by another airplane. And she thought that was it. She said her prayers. She was like, okay, I'm ready to, go to the next phase, whatever. And, but, she and her co-pilot were able to, through this amazing, calmness, able to, land the plane. They did actually lose one passenger was absolutely tragic. But the thing that gives me chills really is that, Tammy Jo made one call into the cabin, one call during that whole episode. And she said, we're not going down, we're going to Philly. And that's where they were going to, that's where they were going to do the emergency landing. And it just, even now it sends me chills because they were this close to not, to being obliterated basically. And astronauts, Ellen Ochoa, Karen Nyberg, Mae Jemison, I mean, all these people, I'm telling you the whole book, but literally you just get me started and I can't stop. But anyway, that's a taste for you.
It's just amazing. Not only are they amazing women, they're amazing human beings. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to take time and to point out to ourselves and to our kids that people who are doing this, no matter what their gender is, are incredible people who put in that superpower, put in that hard work, but also have courage. I have a friend who studied to be a pilot. I have two friends. One is a pilot right now, and we flew with him when he was earning his hours to become a commercial pilot. But
Nice.
the other was somebody who went through all the schools and took his first solo flight. And when he landed, he got down and he said, okay, done that, never want to do it again. And just because it was so frightening for him just to, when he had the co-pilot there or the teacher, he was fine. But, when he was up there by himself and he had to bring everything down by himself, it was just not, I can do it. I did it, but I don't ever want to do that again. So I'm imagining it takes tremendous courage to be up there with, 200 souls that you're responsible for, and the people on the ground that you're flying over that you're responsible for. What just remarkable.
Yeah, I know. And that's the point. Like, that's kind of the thing that really hooked me and told me I must write this book, because when I was studying all these people, they all came from humble roots. Nobody handed them a silver spoon and said, here, you're going to have this great, amazing life. They all struggled and they were brave and they were heroes. I mean, I think of Renaqua Russell, and she's actually in the Coast Guard. And she's currently in the Coast Guard, and she earned this very prestigious medal. It's called the Air Medal. And she was the first female African-American to ever get it. And the reason she got it was because she flew in a hurricane. Putting aside her own safety issues, whatever that is, and just putting aside the danger and the risk and all that, she flew because she knew it was going to save lives, and she knew that, somebody had to do it. And just, things like that just give me chills. I just admire and like you said, reading these stories, like, most of us aren't going to be pilots, and most of us aren't going to, be astronauts or have these experiences. But even whatever it is, whatever the passion is, it still takes guts. It still takes perseverance, and it still takes grit for all of us to follow our dreams. I mean, I'm a writer, and as safe as that is, sitting behind my desk, whatever, it still takes some putting myself out there. People read my words. They might love it. They might hate it. I have to kind of, expect that. I'm sharing myself with the world. So when I talk to young people, I say, even the simple fact of putting your hand up in class, that takes courage. And, whatever it is, doing something new takes courage. So, yeah.
You just reminded me of one of the most terrifying things in my life, which was to put my hand up in elementary school and ask a question.
I know, me too.
But you're
me
right.
too. You wouldn't think of it now, but now I'm fine. Mm-hmm. But I swear, up until age 20 something, I was like, I was the shy kid. Mm-hmm. So it was tough. Yeah.
Obviously, it's important and helpful to read this book with our young daughters and inspire them, and to let them know that they're capable of anything, that they can do any job that they set themselves out to, and just as good as a man, or possibly even better. But I think it would be important for young boys to read it too. Why would you recommend a family with all boys to pick up this book?
And I have a son and a daughter, and I hear you. When I go out to schools and things like that, I say these books are for boys and girls, because it's not about so much the gender. Now, yes, historically for women, it was harder, for the longest time for women to get into some of these fields. But again, it's all about passion. It's all about passion, and it's all about perseverance and grit. And, boys, girls, whatever, we all have those feelings and we all have those obstacles. And, and that's what I really, try to emphasize with young people. I was a high school teacher for the longest time. I've actually only been, out of it for a year. And, I tried to instill this enthusiasm and, stick-to-itiveness to all of my students. No matter their background, no matter who they were, boys, girls, whatever. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. As you're speaking, it's just my mind. I just don't understand how it works. But as you're speaking about these women in STEM and aviators, for some reason I thought about some of the amazing authors that we've had on the show, and all of those New York Times bestselling authors. When I ask them their advice for young writers, they always say, don't write about what you know, write about what you love.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And you're doing the same thing. You're talking about these people who go out and they find their passion and they pursue their passion. And I think that's really an important lesson, too, for us to share with our kids. And I think parents can be afraid of that sometimes because we know that, a young woman or a guy that wants to become a fighter pilot. I mean, the chances of somebody becoming a fighter pilot are very, very small. It's a very unique skill set. It's something that takes a lot of money to train for. So a lot of times parents would go, don't shoot for that. Do something more
closer to the ground.
Yeah. Just I don't want you to be disappointed. But I think anybody that dreams about being an F-18 fighter pilot that doesn't make it but gave it its best shot and went really far, they don't regret that they didn't get it. They really happy that they tried.
Yeah, and that, that really speaks to this whole idea that, our lives aren't just one thing. Mm-hmm. I recall my son was a baseball player when he was younger. He was on a travel team and he loved it and he was pretty good at it. He was playing both pitcher and catcher, not at the same time.
I was going to say.
But anyways, I know, he busted out his arm and, it was it was a very traumatic thing because when he hurt himself, the doctor said, look, he can't play for, months and months and months. And of course, at that critical time, he lost, the ability to play at a top level. And, devastating as that was, it wasn't the end of him. He went on and he did other things. So again, I come back to that whole thing that we should be curious in life and we should open ourselves to all sorts of different things. I mean, even in my writing life, I've written about math. I've written about, sports. I've written about high flyers. I've written about, women heroes in the U.S. Army. And I've written math fairy tales. I've written science. I've written history, so it's just being curious. And sometimes to me, it's those hard things like math or, history or, whatever, being an astronaut, sometimes those are the things that spark my curiosity. And I figure, there's people who do these things and why not, this should open ourselves up to, accomplishment as well, whatever that accomplishment is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, you mentioned that you wrote the book about women in extreme sports. What's the most extreme, crazy, heart-pounding sport that you wrote about in that book?
Oh, wow. Well, I can't really choose one, but there's two that come to mind. One is highlining. And I didn't know anything about these things before I started writing about them. So highlining is when you take a rope. It's not like a tightrope because a tightrope is taut. It's a spongy rope that's, that has some give to it. And you put it hundreds of feet in the air and you walk along it. Now I would be that would be the last thing that I could ever do because I have no balance. But there's that one. There's another one, this wingsuit flyer that I was telling you about before. She actually put on a wingsuit. And again, I didn't know what a wingsuit was before I started writing this book. But it's kind of like a flying squirrel suit. And there's, between your arms and between your legs, you spread your arms and your legs and you have, kind of these additional wings so that it allows you to go mostly horizontal if you jump either off a cliff or out of an aircraft, a helicopter or a plane. And so anyway, this woman loves it. As I was talking about before, she flew between 2 skyscrapers in Panama City. And of course she had to get permission to do that. And, which I'm imagining was tough. But anyway, there's a video you can watch where she flies between these 2 skyscrapers. And when I was asking her about it, she said that suddenly this wind gust, unexpected wind gust came up just as she was flying through. And she had to tilt herself up quite quickly so that she wouldn't, smash into the building. She made it, and it was a bit of a, heart pumping moment. But that seemed pretty extreme to me.
Wow.
And tons of other examples too. But
wow.
yeah.
Wow. I've been to Panama City, and there's a lot of skyscrapers down there. It's not like, just these 2, and they're way wide apart, and you just go through them and land softly. Because you go through those 2, and there's one in front of you and one behind you, and
exactly.
I don't think I could do that. But I can ask
me neither.
you, and I can ask you where we can go to find out more about High Flyers and more about you.
Sure. Well, I've got a website, so it's AnnMcCallumBooks.com. So that's AnnMcCallumBooks.com. And I also am on social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, although I have to say my Instagram got hacked, so I'm starting from the ground up. I have very few followers on Instagram right now because everybody has to find me again. But Instagram is AnnMSBooks. And Twitter is McCallum Books. And again, website, you can start there and, go to all these different places. It's AnnMcCallumBooks.com. And of course the books are, wherever you want to purchase your books or get them out of the library.
Awesome. We've been speaking to the author of High Flyers, 15 Inspiring Women Aviators and Astronauts. Our guest has been the author, Ann McCallum Staats. Hey, Ann, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great week. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time to hear my story.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Janet Hoffman. She'll be joining us to celebrate How Can We Be Kind, a beautiful picture book that talks about how animals are kind to each other in nature and inspires us to be kind to each other here in the world. That's the next episode of the podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, Ann McCallum Staats. Please be sure to check out High Flyers, 15 Inspiring Women Aviators and Astronauts. Also want to thank our sponsors, Michelle Wagner, author of the Mickey on the Move series, and also Dr. Ambrose Haas-Turner, author of Rex's Journey, helping children understand and cope with emotions. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bel Castro, Mirabella Q, Rain Penn. Want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.